Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to Life in Motion. I am your host, Grace Becker. I'm a licensed mental health therapist and an enthusiast of life. And I'm happy to have you all here with me today. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. Clap, 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 clap. Clap to all of you for making it here today. If you're listening to this on its release day, it's Thursday. So that means that your work week is almost over, or it's done, or you ain't gotta work. Good for you. But how do you do that in this economy? Anyways, wherever you're joining me from, wherever you're joining me at in your life, I am happy that you chose to tune in with me today, and to spend some time with me. I've been doing pretty good. I don't really know if I have anything to update you guys on, except for I love my fit today. I feel like it's so cute. I love wearing a long skirt. It just makes me feel like I need to go frolic in a field. I don't know how to explain it. I love them. They're so comfortable and they're cute and they're pretty. I just love skirts. I love them so much. But yeah, I've been doing really good, everyone. So for today's episode, this was one of my 3 that I was talking about in my last episode, how there was like 3 different things I have been working on that I was really excited about. And today's content is one of them. So today we are talking about how to read people. And I was thinking about this topic because I was like observing like one of my clients, and I always observe my clients, and I'm just like, wow, like when I talk to people, even if it's not clients, even if it's people I just know in life, I observe people and what they're doing and what they're, what I observe and what it tells me. And so I was just like, my job, I am trained how to observe people, how to read them, how to read people, how to listen to them, to communicate to them, body language, so many different things and patterns and behavior that I was just like, this would be a super interesting topic, I think, to share with all of you, because maybe you can observe and read some different things when it comes to people. So for today, I'm going to get into some different signs or things you can notice, how to listen closely to what a person is saying and how, looking for patterns, not just the little single one-offs that people have, noticing how you feel around them, test subtly for authenticity, learn their personality type through their behavior, be present and drop your assumptions. So we got a lot to get into today, everybody. So I'm really excited. Let's just jump into it right away. Okay, so number 1 on how to read people, observe their body language. And some things you can look for are things like crossed arms. So often when a person has like their arms crossed over themselves, or they're like this, maybe they're not looking at you, maybe they're looking away, that is a sign that they are uninterested, they are closed off, they are defensive, especially if a client is really, really mad or angry. I notice that they often will cross their arms, and they'll be like standoffish, avoid eye contact, whatever, because they're angry, because they're defensive, because angry people get defensive as fuck, So crossed arms, that's what that means to me. Leaning in. If a person is leaning into me, they got their arms uncrossed, they're looking at me with intent, they are giving off very interested, engaged energy. So I remember being in grad school, and we would do mock sessions in our classes and with people. And one of the things we were tested on and that we were taught to do is for therapists to have that open body language. Because when you open yourself up, and you have like eye contact and you're leaning in towards a person, you're showing interest, you're showing accessibility, and that people can trust you, right? Like, cause you don't have anything to hide, you know what I mean? You're not closed off. So that kind of is what that tells me. Another thing is feet pointing away. So I don't know if any of you have ever seen those videos that have circulated of how, like, if two people, of like a couple's in the car and the one person's knees or feet are pointing away from someone, that means they're not interested. People's feet will usually point in the direction of something they are interested in, or they have I don't want to say attachment, but just a curiosity with. So look for where the feet are pointing, especially if they're pointing away. If there is any tension in a person's body, specifically their jaw, their neck, or their shoulders, like I can really tell when a person is tense, or if their like body or legs are tensed up, if a person's sitting, maybe kind of rocking, that might tell me that they're stressed or they're frustrated with something. Most often I've noticed it's more so stress or unease, kind of mistrust almost. If a person doesn't feel comfortable or safe, or like they can trust you, they are going to have sometimes that nervous, stressful body language going on. The last body language sign that I wrote down here is fidgeting. So yes, a person who fidgets, like sometimes it's just to distract yourself, but a lot of the times it tells me that you might be nervous or maybe uncomfortable, and you need something to like play with, to distract yourself, and it almost kind of eases up conversation. A lot of times if a client is not really engaging with me, especially if it's a younger person, I will encourage a game. I will encourage them to use fidget toys to color, because it's almost easier to get comfortable and to open up when you have something to fidget with to distract yourself, because you can pull yourself out of that reality. Other things with body language, I look for micro expressions with people and their facial expressions. So depending on if it's like a couple, individual, a family that I'm working with, or a person in my personal life, whenever I'm talking to somebody or they're engaging with another person, I look for their face. When like people are getting married and some people will like turn and look at the bride, and others will say, yeah, well, I turn and I look at the groom to see what he's doing. That's me. I'm the person who turns and looks to the groom. That is what can really tell you a lot about how a person is feeling and maybe thinking in a situation, is you look at them and you notice little micro expressions, a frown or a smile. Where are their eyes looking? What can you tell by the way their eyebrows are dipped or their mouth is curved? Their nose maybe is like, I don't know, like tightened up. Where's their head leaning? Like look for those different things for a person's expression, because it can reveal a lot about how a person is feeling. Number 2, listen closely to what they say and how they say it. So a person's word choice, what they say, tells you a lot about them. I often talk about replacing languages like you with I. So rather than you statements, I statements, because when a person uses the word I, it's typically to take ownership of something, of like, yes, this is how I feel. This is something I did. This is what I think. They're taking ownership of something that's very personal to them. When a person says you or they're often very avoidant. They tend to avoid, they don't take accountability. So paying attention to if a person is saying I or you. It can be very subtle. It's easy to miss. It's not always meant to be malicious. A lot of people do this unconsciously. However, it is important. The language we use is very important. Another thing I'll notice is if they're being vague or overly specific. If a person is overly specific, I often assume they're very nervous and they're unsure of themselves or the people that they are around. So if a person's over-explaining themselves, they might be a people pleaser. They might just be like, maybe they're lying. Kids, if you're listening, which I don't know if you should be listening to this or not, because sometimes I cuss on here. Your parents, your caregivers, they know if you over-explain, you're lying. But another side of that is being very vague. If a person is vague, again, that tells me maybe you're avoidant. You can't take accountability or you just struggle to express yourself, to express your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior. And sometimes it can mean that is them being avoidant. It could also mean that they've just never learned how to express themselves, and that way, or therefore they are very vague due to that, having never learned that. And the last one for listening closely is, do they contradict themselves? Do they kind of take back what they're saying? Especially that language of but. Do they say, oh, da 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 da, but... Because when you say like but, it kind of negates the things you were just saying. So yeah, watch out for those things. The other thing on what they're saying is how they're saying it. So that's all the word choice, but a person's tone, a person's pace also can show some signs. If a person has very fast, quick speech, it often may show that there's a lot of excitement going on for them. You know how sometimes kids, they just get so excited for something that they can't even talk about it. They're just like, they might be really excited. It could also be really nervous as well. Those are very similar emotions in the sense of they give that kind of cortisol spike. Is that right? How do I explain it? They're just very antsy type things. Because when I get anxious, I also have similar symptoms when I'm excited. So they can be similar in that way. Another tone is a shaky voice, or maybe even a low, like slow voice as well. That may signal that a person is feeling sad. Maybe they're afraid, or they have some shame going on. So think about when you and your boo were breaking up, or your situationship, whatever you're in. And maybe it was just a hard conversation to have. Were they talking kind of monotone, slow? That tells me that they might be, experiencing some sadness, shame, fear, whatever the case is going on. And finally, monotone, giving more to that. Monotone might indicate detachment or boredom, just kind of like a laissez-faire, they don't really care type of vibe. So if they're kind of, not looking at me, maybe they are relaxed, either they're open or their arms are crossed and looking around, and they're just talking really soft or slow, just nonchalant, monotone. That kind of gives off that they're detached or they're bored. Okay, number 3. Look for patterns, not one-offs. People can have off days. So all these things that I'm mentioning, if there's like the occasional day where a person is kind of showing some of these signs, but they don't otherwise, that is a sign that they might just be going through something, So ask yourself, like, is this a consistent pattern of theirs? Is this how they treat people often? What do they do when no one is watching or rewarding them? How do they act when they are stressed, challenged, or feeling rejected? Those are some key things that will tell you, depending on how you answer those questions, if it's a pattern or not. Do you notice these things having a consistent occurrence? Because then that will tell you that this person might for sure be an overly excited person. They might for sure be avoidant. They might for sure be sad or depressed or anxious. So when when I'm doing this with a client or a person that I'm working with, I'm looking for those patterns when trying to give a diagnosis, because maybe a person will come to me in a state of distress, but it's a one-off because their house started on fire. Stressful situation, right? Fearful situation. And they start to show some of these signs. I'm not going to necessarily diagnose them right then and there with anxiety disorder. It might be an adjustment disorder because they're going through a situation that is causing this distress. You know what I mean? It is very, it depends on the person, the situation. But look for those patterns, not just the one-offs. Number 4, notice how you feel around them. A lot of times people will throw around words like vibe, energy, aura, different things like that. And it honestly is those words, whatever one maybe you use, your generation uses, is a good way of telling you your gut, your intuition, how a person makes you feel when you're around them can give you cues to the type of person they might be or the type of person they are. So your nervous system often reacts before your brain does. So ask yourself, do you feel safe? Do you feel tense around them? Do you find yourself walking around on eggshells, feeling drained, or feeling energized? What kind of nervous system is going on here? What's the body's feelings? What are you experiencing? You know what I mean? Also, test out for your emotional responses as well, because that is data. Do not ignore it. So what kind of feelings are you getting? Are you feeling that anxiety? Are you feeling a down mood? Do you notice that you have one energy walking into an interaction and then leave the interaction completely different? Check it out. If it's something that you like, maybe stick around that person. If it's something you don't like, maybe get away from them, So that was number 4. Number 5 is test subtly for authenticity. So a lot of times people say, oh, I don't want to be tested. I feel like they're testing me. But I say, test them. Test the person, because if this is going to be a friend, a partner, a family person, whoever, you got to test them. Not necessarily to be malicious, but just to see if they're the person for you. Like if they fit in your life and they're what you're looking for. So test subtly, ask small questions, notice their word choice, their word tone, their body language, share something maybe minor vulnerability for yourself to see what they do with that information. Are they validating, reassuring, or are they invalidating and unassuring? Kind of to see what they do with that vulnerability that you open up to about them. But it's not too much, right? We don't want to do too much. We don't want to be too vulnerable because that could end up hurting you in the process, and we don't want that. And you can also ask yourself, do they respect boundaries when you say no? This is such a big one. Families, couples, people with themselves, everyone at some point needs to work on setting boundaries or has set boundaries in the past. And this can be a difficult one to understand or to practice setting, especially if you're a people pleaser. But how a person responds to you setting a boundary gives major hints to the type of person they are. If you say no to something or you very clearly lay out your line and they go against it, knowing that, okay, there's a consequence to this, then that person to me is like malicious intent or harmful intent, like they don't give much respect to you. It just depends what that boundary is being set for and what it was. So pay attention to how another responds to you setting your own boundaries with them. Number 6, learn their personality type through behavior. So a lot of you may have taken personality tests. You may, introvert, extrovert, like that type of stuff. And you can literally go do a personality test if you want to. But even just paying attention to simple things like, are they more introverted, extroverted? Do they feel recharged when they are alone or when they are with other people? And neither one is good or bad. It's just, how do they recharge? What are you looking for in a person? Me, when I'm coming at it from a therapist perspective, I'm not looking for anything specific when it comes to introvert, extrovert. I just want to know how people like to recharge themselves, how they like to fill their cup up. The next thing I think about is, are they a thinker or are they a feeler? Do they tend to lean on logic, facts, data, evidence? Or do they tend to lean on emotion, beliefs, values, empathy, things like that? Because everybody has this very logical side of them and this very emotional side of them. Some of you may have heard of this DBT skill called wise mind, which goes to say that it's kind of the perfect balance of the two. If a person can engage in that, that is amazing. Wise mind is great. And I would still say that people do have a tendency to have to especially try harder to engage in another one. So for example, I tend to be a feeler. However, I do practice very hard to incorporate that thinker side of me, that logical side of me, especially if I'm feeling anxious or irrational, to get to that wise mind. So everyone has this side that they tend to lean on, and just something that you can look for when you're trying to get a read on people. The final one with that is, are they structured or are they flexible? Do they prefer plans or spontaneous outgoings? If a person is structured, it might tell me a few things. It could tell me that they are anxious, that they are controlling, that they are rigid, that they are etc. If a person is flexible, it could tell me maybe they are lazy, maybe they are relaxed, maybe they are calm. You know, it doesn't have to be good, bad. People are not always so black and white like that. But, you know, noticing those patterns of, are they structured or are they flexible, can give you cues to who a person is. You can also pay attention to a person's values. What do they tend to prioritize in their life? What do they try to control? How do they express certain privileges or freedoms? How do they connect with others? How do they celebrate or praise achievement in themselves or other people? Just some kind of some things you can look for in a person. There's a lot. But hopefully these will give you just a kind of an idea of what to look for. And the very last one that I have for how to get a read on people is to be present and drop your assumptions. This is what they do to you in grad school and undergrad. This is what they will do. They will go through all these different things on how to get a read on people. Body language, words, tone, facial expressions, how they interact with other people, maybe their personality type, how they noticing how you feel around them. All these different things you will do to try and get a read on people. And at the end of it all, when you think like, yeah, I got a read on this person, grad school will smack you up inside the head with a textbook that you paid $500 for that's heavy as fuck and say, don't make assumptions. Me and you both. Because, you know, all of these things at the end of the day, they are the things that we are observing. It's very objective. It's not subjective. We're not in with that person. At the end of the day, that person knows how they feel. They know what they are thinking, and they know their actions. Of course, there are facts that we can see that we can bring to that conversation or to the table. But at the end of the day, people reveal themselves in subtle, quiet ways. So what we are trying to bring attention to is, what are those subtle, quiet ways that they're presenting themselves, that they're trying to show you who they are? And don't rush to put a label on them. Just notice it, like go about your day, read people like how I've given you tips on how to do. But at the end of the day, like, don't rush to put a label on them right away. Give them a chance as well to show you the type of person that they are. And finally, I would always recommend practicing active listening. Active listening is less about listening to react and more about listening to respond to people. When another person is talking, are you thinking about what you want to say next? Or are you engaging with them, maybe asking them a follow-up question, mirroring back what they're saying, providing validation, providing empathy? You know, what are you doing? Are you making it about you? Are you changing the subject? Like, are you just reacting right away with your perspective rather than honing in on what they have to share? So those are some things. If you want to sharpen your skills on this, a fun little exercise to do that I've had to do for grad school or undergrad school before is watch a movie, watch a TV show, go sit in a public place, a coffee shop, the store, wherever you want to go, and notice these things that I've shared in this episode. Like, look for the body language, look for the tone, look for patterns, look for those subtle tests, look for their personality type, look for all of these different things. And just see what you can find. And once you kind of get a good read on people, baby, you will be so ahead of the game, because empathy and understanding is the one thing all of us are looking for, and some people can give. So if you are able to give that to a person by the way that you can read them, it is so, so powerful. And that is why therapists can be so helpful. Because therapists are also trained not to take it on, but to observe it, not absorb it, and to create a non-judgmental space, so it's a safe space for people to share. So yeah, that is what I have for you all today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I had a lot of fun making it. If you did enjoy it, please leave a comment, share with your people, leave a review, leave a like. I appreciate it all. If you made it this far in the episode, let's have you comment down a book. Comment and a book emoji, because we're going to read on people. You know what I'm saying? A read on them. So comment a book down below for me, please. But yeah, shout out to my editor, Ben. Thank you for all of your help. If any of you want to get in contact with me or connect with me over social media, all of that will be linked down in the show notes below. I post a podcast every Thursday, so make sure to stay tuned in to hear all about life in motion. But until next week, embrace the chaos and find the beauty. Bye.